to our... That's all right. Didn't pause, I guess. Well, here, I'll tap dance. Good. Well, welcome, everyone, to session. A great panel session, actually, and I'm very proud to introduce, we're very fortunate to have Anju Jain here. Anju is the Senior Director of Product Management at BigID. She's responsible for shaping the product roadmap and leading the product strategy and data governance functionality for BigIDs. She is responsible for working with clients, understanding their needs and challenges, and delivering the product. She has a vast experience in creating ML-powered data products and applying them in real life. She's deeply interested in the data domain and is a data discovery subject matter, and truly an industry thought leader. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce her and the team to the panel.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I have my esteemed panel with me here, and I'll have them introduce themselves. First off, we'll have Marla Dance. Welcome, Marla.
Thank you, Anju, and thanks, everyone, for attending our session today. My name is Marla Dans. I am the head of data governance at Tradeweb. Tradeweb is a fintech firm. It provides fixed income trading platforms, so trading for government bonds, treasury bonds, Euro government bonds, et cetera. I joined Tradeweb in 2018, where I was brought in to establish and start the data governance program from scratch. I've been going ever since. And prior to Tradeweb, I worked at JP Morgan in their chief data office, and then Morgan Stanley for 20 years prior to that.
Wow. And then we have Nilay. Nilay Bhagat, please. Nilay, welcome.
Thank you, Anju, and I think it's awesome to be here, seeing a bunch of data leaders across the world coming together. First time at MIT, so that's amazing too for me. So a little bit about me: I'm a senior manager in the data analytics and engineering organization within IT at American Airlines. I have been with American Airlines for a little over 15 years. All of those 15 years have been in the data field. I've kind of played almost every role that there is, from BI to analyst to ETL architecture. I've seen my fair share of transformations over the years. My most current position here in terms of responsibility, we're responsible for executing the data governance program. And we own the platform, so our team supports the entire platform for data governance. For data privacy, we're establishing a platform for data sharing. And then beyond that, we also have a couple of teams that support our IT and business partners for some specific products, marketing, customer, B2B sales, alliances. So pretty good mix of stuff. Excited to be here.
Thank you. All right. So in our session today, we've got some really good discussions. What you will learn today is how to implement a data governance strategy that is scalable, that is efficient for your enterprises. What are the challenges? What are the modern challenges? What are leaders such as my esteemed panel are facing in their organizations? How do you overcome that? How do you build a data trust that has multiple facets? What are the pitfalls? What do you want to look out for? I also want to say the session is sort of like just logistically how the session is laid out. We'll have a panel discussion initially, and then I have a few slides. Post that, we'll open it up for any question and answers. But if there are any questions in between as we are going through the discussion, please feel free to stop us and talk to us. So first off, we want to talk about what are the challenges today that the data leaders are facing in the environment. So I'll first start off with you, Marla. What are the data challenges that you're facing today that you feel are relevant, important in this environment?
Right. So in general, Anju, I'd say that we all kind of know that the exponential growth in data volume is really a challenge. The data quality issues, are really important for data trust. And when we think about the growing volume, it kind of target in on multi-cloud environments and how that can be a challenge to manage across multi-clouds, ensure that data privacy and governance around all of those stay in sync across those multi-cloud environments, as well as access and finding the data, across those different environments, both external and internal cloud environments. And then beyond that, the other thing would be data sharing, which you had mentioned before, right? Sharing across your enterprise. How do you make sure that data is accessible across the enterprise and is shared, as well as sharing across ecosystems, external to your firm. So TradeWeb being unique in that we sell data actually and getting that data out to our clients.
And I'll say the same thing. There's a lot of things that are similar to what you mentioned that we're also facing. And data itself has evolved, right? If you think about it, the size, the type of format the data is in that we consume today, the amount of data in general, who consumes it, right? There's a ton more people that actually consume data today than there were 10, 15 years ago. So I think at American, we have had to evolve our governance process because and based on that. So our new approach is more engagement focused. We want to have that conversation around data. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do. We have a federated approach for data governance so that we talk about data. We engage people with that. How are we using data? What are we doing with data? How do you want your data? What are some of the challenges you're facing? So that's what we're trying to do at American is try to establish a new sort of approach to governance based on that.
Thank you. Fascinating. And if we talk about some of the data governance use cases, with the growing data, data's everywhere, disparate systems, also, data sharing, how do you trust the data? So with that in mind, what are the kind of use cases that you see and the business benefits that those use cases bring to your organization?
Right. So at TradeWeb, it's actually kind of unique because data governance is actually part of one of the pillars of a revenue-generating business unit called Data and Analytics. So I am peers with, as a data governance, is peers with data science, data analytics, data product managers, right? Business people who are designing new data products, as well as data sales. So we have skin in the game on revenue for our business units. And from there, when we started the program, so my remit is actually firm-wide. So within that, all the data in our firm from our trading platforms flows into our data products. So my remit is firm-wide, although I am aligned with the revenue-generating business unit. So when we started back in 2018, the focus was regulatory. The firm was going public in 2019, so they wanted to get a handle right on all of their data that was now going to be publicly reported and make sure that we understood what was there. So that was our business priorities. But from there, other use cases built out, which, as I mentioned before, cloud data management was really big during the pandemic. Focused on building out our catalog. So we had our business glossaries from before and the regulatory pieces, but building out our catalogs. So really anything that gets into our cloud environment has to go through me first, myself and InfoSec, where we're collecting data owners, we're collecting definitions, or identifying PII sensitive data, what needs to be masked before it gets into the catalog. We're also including in here, now we're just starting to build in more formalized data quality tools and bringing in tools, right? So what we're getting out of this process is certified data sets. So each data set goes in, we collect our owners, our information, we know what needs to be masked, and then it's certified, right? And from there, now we have all of our certified data sets in our cloud environment. We can support the monetization. So that would be the third use case there is monetizing. And then, like I said, in TradeWeb's case, we have our data science teams working off of our high-performance compute environments, creating these new models to support the products that are designed by our product managers. So for an example, there would be our municipal AI price product, which municipal bonds, there's over 800,000 of them that need to get priced daily. And fixed income has always been a traditionally opaque market. There's no ticker running across like in equities where you can see prices on a per second basis. So it's very opaque. So that's part of the value that TradeWeb brings to the table, is building out proprietary models that show where the midpoint is in these fixed income products at any point during the day, as well as end of day pricing. So all of that is fed into by all of our data across, and then governance is underlying across all of that.
Fascinating. It's actually the whole life cycle almost. Like you've got the regulatory things. Yeah, you've got the cataloging sort of, like the fabric laid out.
Yep.
And then you also have the data monetization piece, which is...
Yep. What comes after that is model risk management.
Yeah.
So we're starting that with a new regulation, not regulations, but rules that are in place for doing identifying where is the risk in our models. And that goes a little bit beyond, the traditional financial VAR models, whatever. Everybody knows how it should be implemented, and then you have your risk management looking at it to ensure that it is conforming to the standards. But how do you identify the risk in proprietary models, something that nobody has done before, that has been invented? So this is something new that we're looking at, and challenge all of our vendors out there to help us out for doing that.
Excellent. And how about you, Nilay? What do you feel are the use cases and the business benefits that you guys see today within your organization?
I'll piggyback a little bit. You talked a little bit about trust, right? And I'll kind of go back to our engagement philosophy. So we feel like trust starts with conversation and engagement, like, again, asking what are your challenges? How are you approaching your data problems today? So what we've done is we've created a community-based federated approach at American. Communities are similar to, I think, what you might want to call your domains. We prefer the word community there. And so we've created that community structure that is headed by an executive, a data governance committee that we have. And we just started off recently and formed our operations data community. I think operations, as you know, is at the heart of what we do. It's a very cornerstone metric at American. So we focused on that, and we built that community out. We identified data leaders across the operations organizations at American, and then we built that community for them to basically start prioritizing what are their data needs, right? And talk to each other, because there's various organizations within operations. Have that conversation. In a lot of cases, your challenges are the same, your needs are the same. And so what this structure and federated approach does is it helps that conversation spread through different organizations within each community. And then our goal is for all the communities that we're going to set up to have that conversation. So we're building this data culture. I don't want to say building, we're fostering and enhancing. There's always been a data culture at American, so we're trying to go ahead and take that next step in the evolution.
Excellent. All right. And for all the challenges that we've heard, and like there's a multitude of use cases and the business benefits that we get, how are you getting there? Like, what's the theme? How do you feel users or customer folks can accomplish that? Like any thoughts on the automation? How did you get here? Any thoughts on those?
So, a lot of data governance is still very manual. We have some automation pieces for scanning and creating our catalogs. But where I think the automation really is going to add tremendous value to our business is in the data democratization. And it's in data democratization is what keeps me up at night, right? Where are these folks, as we're handing out, licenses for, reporting tools, et cetera, where are they getting their data from, and is their data clean, and can it be trusted? Are they creating new stuff that, we haven't seen. So putting all those processes in place and automating that is where my focus is now. And where we do that, and we have just gotten to the point where we now have identified, over 65 data stewards globally that will have ownership for this data. So we are moving in that direction. But how do we automate the process for that ownership, that they can say, yes, I'm signed off, I know what this data is. So, where we start is with the business glossaries and having those owners in. We connect that, right, to our technical catalog. So we can even think about in our catalogs, if things are changing in our database schemas, we can send alerts and know about those changes before it actually, because it's tied to the reports now, the critical business reports. We can say something's changed in a schema over here, and guess what? It flows through the lineage, and we know it's going to affect this report before that report is needed. That was one of the stories when I first walked in the door. Everyone's running around, a report is broken. And it was, you found out 3 days later that someone had changed a schema down the road. So it puts the business more in control of that data to know that something has changed before that report is known. So that's one piece of it, is our glossaries, our catalogs, et cetera, and our reports, our metadata associated with all of that. But as I mentioned before on the data quality piece, now we can have those 65 data stewards, going to the catalog, or anybody in the firm going to the catalog, finding a data set, right? And once we run it through the data quality tool, we can have this concept of a 5-star data set. So, something that has gone through the DQ checks, has business owners, has definitions, has everything. We know it's clean and good to go. You want to use that data set? It's good for external communications, client communications, regulatory, fine, you're good to go. Or if they search for it and find it, it's a 3-star data set. Maybe it's had a little bit of run through in the DQ, but there's still a few problems. It might be okay for, say, internal trend analysis, where it's off by a little bit. It's not going to be that big of an impact. Or, a 0-star data set. Don't touch that. It's something brand new. We haven't even looked at it yet. We're not sure where it is. So it gives the business user a sense of what they can use and what they shouldn't use. We'll also show them what columns or rows in there have been masked for security reasons, privacy, confidentiality. And then once they have view of this information, they can find their data, they see where it is, what quality is and the security status. They say, okay, now I want to access it. So let's automate that access and that provisioning process and request access. The first is entitlements. Are they entitled to say that, hey, I would like this row or this column unmasked for my client presentation, and I deserve to. So that goes through its own process for reviewing that request to say, yes, you're entitled to have this unmasked, and then it's got to be masked again at the end. And then once that entitlement is approved, then automate the process for provisioning that. So it doesn't have to go through a manual process through IT to have somebody give access to them in the database. So that's what we're looking at from an automation perspective.
Excellent. Excellent. And how about you, Nilay? What are you focused on when it comes to the automation, and how are users going to be benefited from that?
I think one thing that I've learned coming to this conference and talking to leaders like Marla is the challenges and what we're doing is very similar. All of us are kind of in that same boat. So I think even for us, there's a lot of similarities kind of in what you just mentioned. So what we're doing is we're building a data marketplace at American. We want that to be the one-stop shop for all things data. Data is, to your point, consume, produce reports all over the organization. So we want this to be our first stop for anyone in the organization that has any data needs or wants to find out more about data. But the unique thing that we are doing is we're using a bakery concept over here. I mean, who doesn't like cookies and cupcakes, right? So whether you're looking for a fully baked product a piece of cake, or you're looking for some of the ingredients that make that cake up, your strawberries or your flour, this would be that one-stop shop. And so we're focused on building that out. And similar to how you mentioned, you have different stars that depict what kind of data set or data collection. we're trying to use some emojis for that. So we've got cake emojis that say, hey, look, this is your dashboard. So, when you look at things, you can say, okay, I'm just looking for stuff that I can just go out there and consume right now. But then you have like other emojis that we have that are like strawberries. Like, okay, yes, I can eat it, but I can also use that to make something. And then you have your raw ingredients, which is like kind of like where your data scientists typically go. And I have to like clean this up a little bit, but I have the skills to do that. So easy way for folks to come in and say, hey, look, this is what I want. And this is what, what that particular data collection might mean.
Don't eat the raw cookie dough.
You do not everybody needs the raw cookie dough, right? So, and then I think just piggybacking on what you were saying too, the next step in the automation process is like, hey, you're going here, you're going to this bakery, I like this cookie, I like this cake. I want to go ahead and do the fulfillment process through that too, so that I can get access to that data collection, whether it's a report or something structured. So basically, you can go ahead and have your cake and eat it too.
Getting hungry.
Yes. Excellent. That was great conversation. We've got a poll for you next. Yeah. If you all go to your Vova app, and I'm going to go there too. I hope we get the poll in there. How do we get the poll? Okay.
Did we all get that?
Do we have a poll here?
Sorry.
Do we have a poll? Or maybe I can... Yeah.
We can do a poll if you'd like to.
Yeah?
Raise my hand and say one.
Yeah? Okay, all right. Maybe, that's what we do. Maybe that's what we do.
Culture change, right?
All right. So we'll go like the old school way, yeah? But then we lose the folks who are online, so apologies about that one, yeah? Some technological challenge here. All right, so the goal is to ask you all, as you are accelerating your data governance programs, what would be like, the one that will have the biggest impact, yeah? So, okay, one, I think we had some show of hands. Yeah, you were saying something, sorry?
Oh, yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm partial to number two. The line that I would use is how many heads of data, chief data officers report to the CEO? That's a tough question. I think that's one we all should ask ourselves. What's that? We don't, right? As far as I know, there's one company.
I don't know any.
Sony.
Sony.
Someone from Sony told me that, because I used to say I'd never heard of it, and someone came up from Sony and said, well, that's how we're structured. But if you think about culture change, right, I think that's a foundation. I'd love to hear from the panel, but I'm partial to it. Sorry to sell number two.
No, I would agree with that. Culture change is definitely a big challenge. Like I said, I've been at TradeWeb, for 4 years, and given, the pandemic in there, and I remember, I had just gotten in 2018, a year and a half later, I had my whole foundation. We had our business priorities, our regulatory, everything. And my last meeting in March of 2020, before the pandemic hit, and we knew it was coming, but we thought it would only be a few weeks, right? So I'm sitting there in front of the business at this point, telling, with my slides saying, okay, we're ready now. You need to, help and assign data stewards, business ownership, et cetera. And they're all looking at me like, okay, I know I need this, but I'm not sure what it is. So it was a process of bringing them around, but then boom, the pandemic hit, there was no going back. The business was heads down, just trying to do their job, stay away from that. So that's where I explained before, we kind of pivoted to the technology side. We, the folks who are, better at working on, remotely, right? So we focused there. We focused on our catalog, the scanning, the onboarding into the cloud environments, et cetera. And now that it's over, well, not over, but we're getting back to the offices, there's more focus there. Now is the time where, all of a sudden now I'm getting the business side saying, hey, I want to spread the risk here. I don't want to be the only owner. I don't want to be the only one on the hook. Other people in the firm need to be on the hook for this data as well. And here, now we're going to assign 65 data stewards across the globe, including Europe and Asia. So I'm on the phone at 5 a.m. at this point. So we're getting there, but it was a long time for the change. Maybe it would have come a little faster if we didn't have an interruption of 2 years, but we're finally there. So move forward.
So, we do have the poll online, I quickly type the options, but you can see them on the screen. So, that's what those options mean. And some folks are responding. So if you want, you could poll now, and then we'll put it up and do a few slides. I'll give folks another minute.
Is it the poll? Is there?
There's a poll, yes. Now, there is.
It is?
Yeah,
There it
yeah.
is.
No, I can see responses coming through.
Nice.
Session.
Wow, that's unfair. We already gave him the answer.
Okay, I will share the results now, yeah? So, okay, all right. So, now it's going up, so,
Good, just
okay, how do I share the poll results, yeah?
Well, actually, share poll results is actually on your phone.
Yeah?
I think you can just hit it. See? Share.
Ah, okay.
Everyone who's putting in and entering into the poll, after you submit your entry, you actually see the poll results on your phone.
Ah, okay, all right. So I can project it though, yeah?
I can hook you up your phone to the projector.
It's okay, all right. I will just read it out, yeah? So I think, like he was saying, from the poll, data culture is the winner, yeah? So folks definitely feel that if there is a data culture within their organization, that change is definitely going to accelerate their cause. We've got a few slides, and then we'll come back to answering any questions from the panel. What we've talked about so far are the challenges of disparate data sources, building data literacy or data fluency within the organization. Things are on cloud, some are on-prem, they're everywhere. And the biggest barrier to success is really not doing things in a manual fashion, but rather having an automated mechanism to build glossaries, catalog the data, like the panelists were saying, that's the challenge that users like yourselves or customers, enterprises are facing. One way to solve this challenge is really, what BigID does. So I've just got one slide over here, which is regardless of where the data is, understanding, cataloging the data, knowing what kind of data is, automating it through different lens. Yeah, you may want to classify the data, meaning what kind of data is there. You may want to correlate the data. Yeah, data for customers are different than suppliers, than patients, than based on the entities that you have or manage within your organization. Also, you may want to cluster similar type of information. So that's something that's a lens that you would want to look at, and then ultimately have all of this information cataloged together automatically, so that any user who's looking for the information can search. Or the data stewards, the data analysts, the CDO office, who are chartered to put additional semantics over it, at least get a jump start or a boost from automation. On top of it, you could actually action on this data, yeah? So you've got a lot of data, structured, unstructured, semi-structured. You've got all of this discovered information. You know everything that you can possibly know about that data, but now what? Yeah. Now you want to put this data into use, and that use could be you want to use the data for privacy reasons. Yeah. Right now, data governance is not really all about just managing the data. It's layered in with privacy items like the PII or what are the regulations, like my panelists were saying. What are the regulations that I need to adhere to? Also from a security aspect, if you want people to get access, or should they have access? Should this data be available in general? So those are the kind of applications, along with traditional data governance items like reference data, MDM, data lineage, data quality. Yeah, those are the things. That's where the application layer comes in. That's how you would want to use the discovered data for your purpose, depending on your business use case. Yeah. Just some differentiators for our product, really the coverage, yeah, that's something that comes up top, which is you get everything automatically contextualized, available to you. But coverage, I feel, is the biggest one with machine learning augmentation. You get all of the data catalog discovered automatically using machine learning. So this is how a catalog could be created. Yeah, one of the ways that we've created the catalog, and you may have different ways, different products that you're using. But what are the capabilities that you would want in a catalog? Yeah, within a catalog, you would want something that is discovered automatically. You don't really need to create or do things manually. You could search the system. You could find similarities across the data sets. You could also profile the data, look at maybe the data that has only unique items, or you want to see items that are not blank. Those are the kind of capabilities that you want within your catalog. And if it can be enriched with an automated business glossary, that's definitely going to help you when you are automating your catalog or your catalog business glossary journey. Then comes the data stewardship, which is where the data governance professionals are really interested in looking at what all terms are there, what all glossaries are available, how can I automate them? Yeah. So the days of manual creation are almost over, or they're impossible to scale. What you're really looking for is an ability to jumpstart your effort in terms of creating the terms, or even if you're taking them through an approval process, you want an intelligent system that can give you insights and help you make the decision. The information is incomplete, so let's throw it back, yeah? Like, let's just have the information completed before users get to view it or review it, or business owners, data owners are looking at the information, something that, Nilay was saying, there are all some kind of storing system or rating system so that users get to that information automatically. That's the kind of stewardship model that you are looking for, where the stewards get help or insights from the system as they are doing their work. Then there is data quality, and I've been in some sessions about data observability as well. So you really want to move towards the data observability piece, which is looking at the data proactively and then suggesting to the user what may happen, over a period of time. All of these things you really want the system to take care of. Yeah, that's how we help automate the business. We help automate the data governance realm by giving all of these features or functionalities or products that really help the users by automating their work, by giving them insights, by having machine learning augmentation, so that the users don't really do everything manually. Yeah. Finally, one of the things that I feel something that data governance professionals are more and more interested in is really managing the entire data lifecycle. Yeah, data aging, record retention. While it was the privacy world initially, I see more and more data governance folks, or like the data community is all sort of coming together. The privacy, the security, and the governance world are overlapping. One of the things that you are, as data leaders, definitely want to know is what's the age of the data, yeah? And especially when you're moving to the cloud or pushing for the cloud migration, do you really want to migrate the data? Yeah, something that's really old, not modified, contains no PI, maybe is redundant data. Yeah, so all of those aspects also come into play when you are managing, governing your data. That has become a critical aspect and something that can be automated. Yeah, you can really look at the data, see how old it is, has been used, not been used, if there are copies of data, is it obsolete, if there was a legal hold or not. So these things can be automated and users can benefit from that. Finally, you could create one metadata hub as customers, as users. What you would want to do is you have all the products in your ecosystem. There's no one product that does it all. What we can help with is really help you connect all your systems together, bridge the gap. You will have multiple products. It's an open product, open APIs, and we've got official integrations with other products so that you as customers can really get the benefit of having an integrated ecosystem. Finally, what I would like to say is data governance really is not just in one realm. You really have the privacy aspects of it, you've got the security aspects of it, and then the governance. And the leaders today really are coming together to say, what are the privacy aspects or the regulatory aspects, the PII information that I need to be mindful of? What are the security aspects, meaning what's the risk? Is it high risk, low risk, or can I get access to it? Are there open accesses to my critical data systems? And the critical data systems or critical data elements are really defined by the data governance. The value that your company or organization gets is really where the three meet, so that you at your organization have a privacy-aware, security-aware, governed data in which the users or the user community has trust, and that's how you can foster the trust or build a data trust within your organization, whether you are doing so internally for your internal use, or in some cases, you may be monetizing on the data. So it's not just one aspect of the data that will help you create that kind of a data trust. Rather, you would want to have a privacy and security-aware data where users contribute. There's a rating system, they collaborate, and users have trust within the data. So with that, we'll open it up for any question and answers. Yes, please.
Okay, hold on a second. What we try to do is get you a mic.
Just maybe one question for you guys. One of the things we focus on a lot with governance stewardship is education, for our clients. Because, stewardship governance is a process, right? With certain roles, designated roles that have to perform certain functions, for this to be successful. How do you guys handle that in your success stories in terms of educating the owners, the stewards, analysts on their roles in performing this function, to really get the outcomes that you want out of it? How do you guys have achieved that in your organizations?
As I mentioned before, when I started and, prior to that pandemic, I sat down with the business and I said, and I got that blank stare, what do you mean you need data stewards? And then we went out for pandemic for 2 years and I pivoted to working with the tech teams and all of that, but I didn't forget about the business. I used that last 2 years to do that education, which is what you're talking about. And I started with first a program on, let's start with literacy. Let's start with what is a data steward? What is an owner? What is your role there? And it was, an education that I put out to our entire firm and conducted on a couple of times. Then from there, once you kind of got the thought process down and what is your role, the second round of education was on data democratization. Okay, now you know what your role is, and guess what? You're all going to now, begin. We want to, as these analytic skills are moving closer to the business and further away from a centralized analytics and data science teams, we're putting the power in your hands. What is data democratization? What does that mean? Everybody knows it's a buzzword. What does that mean in terms of them? You're going to get access to your data, but that, and closer to the data, but that access means you have some responsibility in it as well. It cannot just be the Wild West of data, and these are the processes that we go through. And then as we got assigned to those 65 data stewards, that's when we really drilled in deep for each one of them. What is your role? How are you going to sign off on this? What data do you need to look at in order to say, yes, this looks good to me? Where do I look for that information, and how do I sign off on that? So it was a very prescribed process. So we start at the high level and then dig our way down.
Yeah, From our side, our approach is fairly federated. So we've got a pretty strong data culture throughout the years, as well as a culture of literacy and training about data. I think our focus here is to have folks that are already doing that converse with each other, because somebody in, let's say, the revenue department has already a great program going of training of data literacy, but somebody else over here might not, or might have something different. So we want to start that conversation with those two organizations, so that then we can take like kind of like the best of both worlds. And then to your point, right, we want them to kind of help come up with what this data literacy program is going to be, share some best practices and together like come up with something that works better for the entire organization.
It's almost like center of excellence type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, so related to the presentation and the automation process for cataloging the data and preparing actually the whole data governance framework. But in order to do that, you need to obviously have access to the data that you will then automatically analyze, right? So, and that's a challenge on its own. It's kind of a project on its own. You need to connect to different data sources before you can analyze them. So the question I have is, what would be the recommended approach? Like assuming we have, I don't know, 30, 50 different data sources, would you then recommend to connect to separately to each one of them? Or you would rather recommend first to bring the data to one place, kind of a data lake, right? And then apply the automation of your stack.
So I will answer, and then maybe, Nilay can answer as well. Like from my standpoint, I would advise that keep the data where it is. Yeah, you really don't need to move the data for just building an automation over it. The data needs to be there where it is being used, unless you need to move it for a reason, like, you sunsetting something or modernizing something, renovating, consolidating data centers. That's a different business purpose. But just for the purpose of automating or automating data governance, cataloging, glossary, and all, I wouldn't move the data. The data stays where it is. And there are technologies, of course, BigID is one, but there are technologies that'll automate the entire process with the data being where it is. And that's really one of the differentiators that some of the products have, and ours clearly, which is the coverage. How many data sets or how many types of data sets can you connect to, and then discover the information. But yes, we always recommend that keep the data where it is needed, where it is. You don't need a separate exercise in just moving the data only because you want to create an automated catalog. But maybe
You've
Nilay
actually got a lot of questions, so
Okay.
good answer, unless you feel.
Yeah, I think maybe Nilay can
Go on, but
Okay.
keep moving. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Any other questions here? Okay, well, we've got a whole list of them here. The first one says, how can privacy and security become part of data governance? Are there any tools/collaboration best practices? I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure. I think privacy and security go hand in hand. So we have a very strong partnership with our friends at cybersecurity. We meet consistently. We brainstorm on how can we benefit from what each other is doing. Actually, we use BigID for that, right? Our security team as well as our privacy team uses BigID for that. Data discovery, as you mentioned, you need to know where your data is, what do you have. So we do partner with them very closely, and we're going to partner even more closely going forward because as we know, where our data is, I don't want to say as we know where our data, as we find out more about our data, then we have to figure out like what kind of regulations impact it, as well as how do we best protect it. So definitely a very close collaborative relationship between privacy and security.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Governance and our information security teams, we work hand in hand to make sure that anything that's uploaded into our cloud environments, we have PII identified, confidential information identified, and then the processes for dealing with that.
Great. Great answer. Next question, and I'm doing this by order of number of votes, which seems to be the most important questions. Next one is, what are geo considerations for global modern data governance for data trust? So it sounds like for global implementations, do you have any considerations with regard to using the tool?
Using the tool?
Well, what it says is, are there any geo considerations for global modern data governance for data trust? I hope I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah, so I could answer, at least
Okay.
take a crack at it. So one of the things, and large organizations face that, there is a data trust, or they're trying to build a community. Yeah, I would not even call it data trust, but a community where information is shared. And how do you share the information across borders? Yeah, with some regulations in place for cross-border transfers. But so if there are best practices to see how you could still share the intelligence while not sharing the data. Yeah. So you're really looking for. So when it comes to best practices, what we recommend is you definitely want to have this visibility into what can be shared, in terms of data, viewing the data, if I get really technical, the ability to view the data in these tools, that's clearly not going to be possible based on the cross-border transfer agreements. And there are products that are aware of that. Yeah. So the information or the knowledge about the data is available to all, but then based on your location awareness and cross-border data transfer and sharing agreements, products, of course, BigID does that. The products are aware what can and cannot be displayed. So, that's something that you need to know what can and cannot be shared, and automating it is the way to do. Otherwise, things sort of slip through the cracks.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it was probably someone about a GDPR concern,
Yeah.
cross-border. So I think you nailed that one. Next question, 3 votes. Data governance is often seen by many as an inhibitor, policing, controlling, bureaucratic, et cetera, that slows data exploration. What approaches are you taking to change that mindset and demonstrate value creation through data governance? How do you measure data governance contribution to value creation?
Well, I would say that you're going to have a lot more problems if you don't have governance and you're dealing with, dirty data, right, in your products. So, there is something that you need to, well, let's put it this way. When I came from JP Morgan, it was a very federated model, top-down approach, big processes. I had all these templates in mind. I'm going to go to TradeWeb and do all these things. And when I got there at a very nimble firm, less than 1,000 people, agile, I knew I had to skinny down that data governance. That's, I call it skinny data governance, and make it as agile as the firm that I was in, right? And so that's what I did. And so, yes, there are processes in place, and maybe people get frustrated if they can't get to their data immediately, but there's value, right, in identifying and running it through that process and making it as brief as possible, as painless as possible, for making sure that data is under governance and reviewed by information security before anybody can start using it. So I think that they start seeing that value after a while, as opposed to just using it from whatever source. Mm-hmm.
And I'll just add on to that, what we're trying to do is we all have our corporate priorities, right? So what we're trying to do is, as we work with the communities, identify what their top corporate priorities are, and then figure out what aspect of governance can help assist with those priorities, because then it provides them a value. It's something that they're already working on. And then also they whether it's I have 2 definitions of A and B here, or whether it's a data literacy challenge, right? So I think it gives them and shows them benefit of what data governance can do too.
Great. Next question. Building tools and processes to support data governance are the easy bits. Obviously someone with experience. But data governance is an organizational, cultural, transformational journey, and there is no silver bullet. What is your experiences in driving the culture and accountability at all levels, important at the top in the organization? So this is a setup question.
It's
Cultural change. Okay, go right ahead.
So I took this role up about a little over 2 years back, and I think in all my previous experience, I had helped deliver technical solutions, right? You had something in mind that you had to do, and then you coded your way through it, you designed your way through it, and you got it done. And when I took this role over, I was like, okay, this is something like that. Let's go do this. And very soon you realize like there's no technical solution out of this, right? You have to talk and engage people, understand what they want, understand like what their needs are, and establish that mindset, right, of governance. And that's been I don't want to say hard, but that's been fun actually, to be honest, right? Like, because at the end of the day, you get some satisfaction building a technical solution, but you get more satisfaction like saying, okay, look, hey, I helped influenced, how folks are working. So it's a journey. I mean, to me, it's not there's not necessarily going to be a destination, but it's kind of like a never-ending road trip. You pick the folks that you like going on a road trip with. That is our team. And then you just enjoy the ride. So
it is a team sport, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that, I spent a little while consulting, data management consulting before I joined TradeWeb. And it was mostly in financial services firms because they always bring in the consultants when something's going wrong, right? And I got a bird's eye view, right, into all these different data management programs. And they would show, oh, this is my whole roadmap. This is what I've done. I've invested millions in technology and data lakes and all these things. How come I'm not getting adoption? And, more often than not, it's look at it and say, well, where's the business in this plan? So don't forget your business. And you have to start with the business priorities if you want to gain that adoption, and then build in those tools that support those business priorities. And as you move on to the next, then you can start adding in more tools to continue your architecture. And
that's very true. That alignment between business and IT is absolutely super crucial to that adoption.
And in the previous question, someone said, how do you avoid the word policing? And this is just, I'll throw in as a thought. I've been on 2 recent governance projects, and what we decided to name, one was the Data Trust Project, and the other one the Data Enablement Project. But as it turns out, the company was based in California and decided not to go with enablement because they said it might have a negative terminology to enable people. So I said, okay, I'll take that into consideration. Maybe data trust is the best name. It'd be interesting to hear what you guys call here, rather than governance, which sounds like you're coming in with a police force and we're going to take over. So just kind of fun there.
That branding is very important, right? And when I first joined, they're like, don't put me in a steering committee. That's too JP Morgan, big whatever. So I stayed really far away. I don't even like to use the term governance internally. I call it the data committee. That's very innocuous, or everybody's in a committee.
I think right now the culture is all about collaboration, and the more you collaborate, you see. I think folks have to see the benefit in doing things differently, something that helps their business or their daily life, and then collaboration sort of builds the trust and the community. So like Nilay said, it is a journey. Like, it's not, a turnkey solution.
Sure.
Tomorrow, you got everybody engaged onto a data governance program.
I call it a cupcake.
Yes. It takes time to bake a cupcake, yeah?
I think we all know not to call it data governance project, because project makes someone think it's an end. It's a program. It goes on and on. Next question. Building tools and processes to support governance are the easy bits. Oh, no, we did that one.
That's the one.
Sorry. Automation is just an accelerator. You still need people making decisions. How do you get that point across to people who think that a technology automation will magically do everything for them? That's a good one.
They are part of the automation process, right? So instead of sending everything through emails, getting approvals, right? As you're automating it, you're doing workflows, right? And they're part of those workflows for approvals or what have you, and you have to educate them on what their role is in that. But ultimately, that is the part of the automation, is getting those pieces in place, getting that flow going, and having them understand their role in that automation, and then the technical sides of it, can be automated on the back end.
And it's exactly what we have in mind too, as we are automating the process to fulfill access requests. We're talking to the folks that are approving these requests, what are their challenges? What portions would benefit from automation, right? Like what is your role going to be on the other side of this? So, and then that's exactly what we're also doing.
Not getting rid of roles, but transforming them, right, to be part of the process.
Makes sense. Any more questions in here before I keep reading the questions from the remote audience? Okay, good. Here's another one. Can you describe what are the characteristics of an organization that does data governance well? What are the observable differences between organizations that do data well and those that don't do data well? Data well, that's interesting.
I'll maybe chime in first. I think we've had a pretty strong history of governance and culture of data at American. So, but I think a good characteristic I feel like is that alignment between business and IT, as well as getting the highest level of support that you can get for governance. So what we've done is we've kind of got the best thought leaders across business and IT, and we're working together as one unit. And then we also have the highest level of support, because and then that message is proliferated to the other executives and to the other leaders at the highest of levels, in terms of like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how you can get involved, these are some of the benefits. So I feel like that, to me, is a good sign of us doing governance the right way. I'm pretty sure we could figure out what are not good signs: lack of trust, lack of data quality. You can say lack of any of the right.
I would agree with it's a top-down, right? It has to have that top-down support. And an attribute of a company would be, to somebody's point back there earlier, right? Have your CDO, right, on your executive board, right, reporting into your CEO.
Yeah.
So that's really where it starts, from the top down.
I saw recently a cartoon on LinkedIn. It showed if data reports in IT, data is owned by IT.
Exactly.
If data reports into a CDO below the executive level, then data is owned by the CDO. When the CDO reports to the CEO, data is owned by the business. An interesting analogy. Well, there's only a couple minutes left, so I think maybe it'd be appropriate to have each of you surmise what are your thoughts from today's panel. Who wants to start first? Oh, I got you on the spot here. All right, why don't you start first?
All right. Okay. So I think how I would summarize really is like the challenges we are, regardless of the industries or the organizations, there are some common underlying challenges that folks have. Growing data, disparate data, lots of manual processes, and too many things to do at the same time, yeah? So I rarely meet or rarely met anybody who said, I've got a lot of free time, yeah? I can really, check all my initiatives for this year. So there's too much to do, disparate data, can't really get our arms around them. And the way to do that is twofold, yes, data culture, I think that's very important. We can buy all the tools, yeah, but the tools are only going to do so much. The bigger change will come when all the organization, and of course top down, is together, is helping that cause. And that's what I would say.
I would say that, as we move more towards data democratization, and to one of those questions before, why does it slow it down? As you're moving it, it's almost like you're moving data out into the business area, that data management practices become even more important, right? So I always like to say, you better get in front of your data, get it managed before it starts managing you. Because once it's out in the wild of your business, it's going to be very hard to harness back in. So.
Well, I like that. Once it's out in the wild.